Hello and welcome to From the Helm Life here at Caravel Minerals core shed in the Northern Wheatbelt region of Western Australia. I'm Grady Wulff, Market Analyst with Bell Direct, and this series is in partnership with Resources Rising Stars. Caravel Minerals is underway in their development of a large-scale, long-life, open-pit mining and processing operation in this region that is capable of delivering over 65,000 tonnes of copper per annum, which we know is increasing in demand from global markets as we undergo the green energy transition. The Caravel Copper Project, located in WA's Wheatbelt, is one of the biggest new copper development projects in Australia and indeed the world. With a resource of over 3 million tonnes of contained copper, Caravel is the fourth biggest copper discovery in the world in the past decade. I'm joined here on the site of what will be one of Australia's largest copper operations in the near future with Don Hyma, the Managing Director of Minerals, and Alasdair Cooke, the Executive Director. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me today. And what a day it is out here today. And so obviously it's just farmland right now. Talk to me about what the last 12 months has looked like and what we will be standing in one day.
Yeah, look, it's been a very busy time for Caravel over the past 12 months. Probably no surprise to you since we last spoke.
Yeah.
And there's been a few really major milestones we've achieved over the last year, and I think probably two are worth calling out. One is we've submitted the environmental review document to the state, and so that is a very important milestone for the project, but also for the regulatory process that's actually ultimately going to take us to a ministerial approval to actually construct this mine in the future. So that's one, and I think the other one, a bit more fundamental, more in line with Al's background, which is the mineral resource for the first time now includes the other metals, being molybdenum and precious metals.
Wow.
So now we have all the metals in the mineral resource. It's being reported publicly, and now we're updating the mine plans around being able to extract all four of those metals, all of which add value to the business case for the project.
Now, your quarterly results are out just recently. Talk to me about that. How's the cash flow going and what's it looking like funding-wise into the near future?
Yeah, so the quarterlies came out yesterday, as you know, and that's, again, it's really nice to be able to report some positive news. And in terms of your question around cash, so in that quarterly, you will have read most likely that we have about a little over $8 million in the bank. Which is a very good position to be in for us at the moment, seeing as we're still in feasibility study. And we spend, somewhere around $500,000 a month. So we've got a pretty good runway all the way through to the completion of the feasibility study.
Now, copper is the space to be right now. It's the commodity of the moment. BHP and big names are going really hard at their exploration and their acquisition of assets in the space. How does this impact your outlook, and does it impact what you're thinking of Caravel, and does it put it on the radar of big miners for acquisitions?
I think we're really happy to be in the copper space. We've always felt that the time was going to come, and it's very difficult to find new copper projects. Caravel's one of the top 10 discoveries in the last decade for new copper discoveries, and so there's going to be a huge problem on the supply side with new projects to meet ongoing demand. And so we think Caravel's the type of project that's going to become one of those copper developments that has to come online sometime in the next couple of years, which is about exactly right for our timing.
Yeah, and demand for copper is going to increase naturally because of its role in decarbonisation and living standards for everyone, and obviously the green energy transition. Does that play into your outlook for sales and for offtake agreements, and does that really impact what you're kind of working towards?
Very, very much so. I mean, we do really stick to the fundamentals. Of course, we're feeding into a future decarbonisation demand profile, as you mentioned. But in terms of offtake, we are a major copper producer in the future, and so quite naturally, the product that we intend to produce from this site, that'll feed into the South Asian market. So naturally, it'll go to places like China and Hong Kong and Japan, traditionally a big a refiner of copper, and so when the time comes, and that being in and around the feasibility study completion, we'll start those discussions with off-takers.
Now from here, you have infrastructure in place already, talking about water, power. The roads are very well established. Talk to me about what's in place that really kind of de-risks the cost outlook for this company.
Yeah, look, this is one of the greatest features of this project is the fact that we're only a 2-hour drive from Perth.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
As you know, and sealed road all the way.
Yeah, it's been really nice.
Right? So very good. And we've got a power line in the state grid not too far from us that we'll connect to. And we have a water resource that we've defined over the last 2 years that's about 40 kilometers from here. We don't have to build railways. We don't have to build ports. all that other infrastructure. We don't have to build town sites. The future workforce will be sourced regionally, but also from Perth in a drive-in, drive-out basis, so we're not FIFO, which gives people options to work here at Caravel.
Now, the geology here, obviously around the world, geology can be quite strenuous and mountainous, as your history would tell in Chile.
Yeah.
How does it compare here in the mining processes to that of where you began your journey in Chile?
Well, Chile is certainly a completely different challenge, being in the Andes Mountains at 4,000 meter elevation, where we just spoke about infrastructure, and there we had to build slurry pipelines from the Andes Mountains to the ocean. We had to bring power from sea level up to the mine site. We had to build a port, we had to build a town site, we had to build a power station. All of that infrastructure is required for those projects, those large, typical porphyry copper projects like ours here in the Andes Mountains. Looking around here, it's
dead flat.
It's dead flat.
We're not altitude or anything.
Correct. Not only are we just 2 hours out of a major metropolitan city, in a state which is world-class in mining experience, we don't have to contend with the geography.
Now, grade is king in all of mining in different areas, but copper naturally, you need to look at the grade. What's the grade looking like of your resource, and can you explain for our investors what the resource looks like, how big it is, what you're going to turn out each year?
So it's porphyry. It's a typical porphyry, but it's a much older and it's been modified a bit. So it's got some characteristics that make it a bit different. And the grade distribution it's a key feature of the Caravel project. We've got zones of high grade that are separated by zones of low grade. And we have looked at all the different ways of mining it, and the way that makes the most sense is to go to a bulk mining method like most porphyries and mine all of that low grade material with the high grade. And that's possible because our costs are going to be quite low because of the good location we're in. We don't have far to transport our product. By going to the bulk mining, we take out a lot of the risk. We can use bigger equipment, we can drive down our unit costs, and we can capture all that low grade copper and put that through the mill as well to make the project a much larger producer overall. So that's why we end up reporting a lower grade. We take all the high grade with the low grade material, and we're pretty much sitting where a lot of the new major porphyries are, in that 0.25 to 0.3 copper range. That's where most of the new projects are in the South Americas in particular, but a lot of them are in much more difficult, higher cost locations. So this project at a low grade is still a very attractive project economically.
And now we're seeing technological advances in all of the industries, every sector on the ASX, but particularly in mining with the ore body testing and different safety elements. Are you looking to use advanced technologies, AI potentially?
Look, again, Western Australia is a fantastic place to build a new mine when it comes to technology. We all have read about what has been conceived, created, and put into operation by the likes of the Rio Tintos, BHPs, and Fortescues in driverless trucks, in driverless trains, in advanced communication between Perth and up in the Pilbara, 3,000 kilometers to the north. Our project can leverage off of all of that because that technology and that experience exists right here in Perth.
Talking about the Rio Tinto element, you do have Greg Lilman on as an advisor to your board. What does he bring, and what does such a big name bring to the Caravel story?
Oh, look, so we're just so pleased to have Greg advising us in Caravel, and he's quite keen on the project, and he's very much interested in the metal itself. Copper being a metal that everybody can understand. But really, what does Greg bring? He brings decades of deep mining experience from the initial days of his operational management responsibilities in the Pilbara to rising all the way through to executive level in a major mining company in the world. But it's more than that. It's more than just the mining experience. He also was part of a small group back in the day who conceived this idea of autonomous haulage and communications, etc. It was called Mine of the Future. And it's no longer the future because it's actually
now.
So Greg brings all of that as well.
Amazing.
He also brings a very strategic mind. And so when we start thinking about implementing this project and indeed structuring the funding for this project, it's really great to have an advisor like Greg helping us with that.
Now, talking about the mine and the pit itself, how big is the pit comparable to many other mines that are out there right now? How deep is it going to go, and what's it going to look like?
Well, we're standing now in the middle of what will be the Bindi pit, and that has two limbs, the west and the east. From north to south, it's about 3 kilometres. and across from the far side, east-west, it's about 2 kilometres.
Wow.
There'll be a bit of an island in the middle, which is more or less where we're standing now. So that's comparable to the super pit in dimensions. And current depth is around 400 metres. It's a long-lived operation. It'll take a long time to get there, but the beauty of that is that it means we've got one pit that's producing nearly most of the ore for this project. It's a very simple design, and so that allows you to set things up right. You're not constantly moving around. You can drive your costs down. You can make it a simple and stable, low-risk operation, and that's one of the great attractions of this project.
Now, when you're considering offtake agreements, you can either sell to an offtake partner or in the spot market. With the outlook, what is your decision on this so far?
Well, look, we haven't decided anything yet, but I think it's fair to say that our first priority will be to approach those traditional off-taking companies in the countries that I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
We need a feasibility study for that. And so there's a couple of things that guide us in how we're producing this feasibility study. As Al just mentioned, one of them is we need to keep it simple.
Yeah.
It is a big bulk open pit mining operation, moving a lot of material. So the simpler, the better.
Yeah.
Right? That's number one. And number two, because as you said, the copper demand is there, we can take our time.
Yeah.
We can define this project very well before we publish a feasibility, and indeed before we get to a financial investment decision.
Yeah.
And shareholders will love that because we're reducing the risk.
You're not rushing.
And so once those are in place, then we'll certainly start the offtake discussions.
Now, environmentally, obviously, there's a bit of, you're changing the land from farmland into mining land.
Yeah.
Is it hard to get the environmental approvals, and what's the process around that?
So the process is a very known process.
Yeah.
It's called the Part 4 of the Environmental Protection Act here in Western Australia. The completion of that process is aligned with when we wish to reach a financial investment decision, so that our shareholders, current and future, can know that when we commence construction, we've got the government approvals to do so, and we have the funding in place to do so. So that's going really well.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, we've submitted a key document called the Environmental Review Document. That will go to a public environmental review we're targeting early next year.
Yeah.
So everybody will be able to read about the details of this project and comment, and we welcome that.
Yeah, awesome, amazing. So what are the current development timeline looking like, and what milestones should investors expect to see in the market announced over the next 12 months?
Yeah, so let's talk about the project timeline. So we're targeting feasibility study completion early next year. We'd like to have it done in around the March-April timeframe.
Yeah.
And then following that, we have a 6 to 9 month period where we obtain the ministerial approval for the construction, and then also talk to investors for funding so that we can reach a financial investment decision at the end of next year. And then from that time, it's a 2 to 3 year construction build. So that puts us into production around the back end of 2028 and possibly early 2029. Again, we're not concerned about timing because the markets demand is so strong, and as Al said, the supply is challenging and is continue to be challenging for the foreseeable future.
Will be for decades to come.
It's
Don,
a very unique position to be in, to not be driven by the markets.
Absolutely, Don and Al. Thank you for your time today, and we'll go check out more of what will be the Caravel project.